This is Jenny Kunkel, and in this video we're going to take a look at the delete statement. This is going to be similar to the update statement in that we can use a join statement from our from clause, which is optional. We can also provide a where clause to indicate what specifically we want to delete from the table, or we can use a subselect or something of that nature. We're going to start with the delete. The from is not required. Typically, you see the delete from in the command, and then you also provide the table name at minimum. Now, if you just say delete from table name, it's going to remove everything from the table as long as there's no foreign keys that are enforcing data integrity. If there's not any keys there maintaining that integrity, it will just remove everything from a table. So let's go ahead and let's switch over to SQL Server. We went through an example in our employees table, and if we take a look at that, this is from our DBO.employees. We added a record, and then we updated that record. I actually ended up committing the data at some point, and we also have a number of people that are now reporting to me. Now, if I try to go in and delete that record from the employees table, so delete from the DBO employees, and I specify the simple where condition. Of course, I could use a subselect, but I'm just going to do the simple way and just specify the employee ID and set it equal to 11 and execute this query. It's going to fail, and it's going to tell me that it has a constraint, and this is going to be the foreign key constraint that is enforcing that I have records in the table. Those reports to records in the table have a reports to value of 11, and my employee ID is essentially 11, and it's not going to allow me to delete those records until I do something and change that 11 to some other value in that reports to column. If I do that, then it should allow me to delete. So let's go ahead and let's update the DBO.employees table. And we're going to set that reports to field equal to its original value, which was 5. And we're going to do this where the reports to value currently equals 11. When we do that and execute it, and then we go ahead and delete, then it's going to allow us to delete. So that's going to work fine. But let's take a look at that foreign key constraint. And I can always expand my employees table, and it's going to give me my keys, and I can see that I have that foreign key between employees and employees. I can go into the modify, and it's going to show me that I have down here at the bottom the insert and update specification. And one of the things that it's going to show me is this delete rule. We see that the delete rule is no action, and this is the default rule for deletes, and that means that if an attempt is made to delete a row that contains a key referenced by the foreign keys in existing rows, like we saw with the 11 on the reports to, when we tried to delete the record with the 11 for employee ID, then it's going to raise an error, and it's essentially going to enforce the integrity. Now, I can also specify a rule that says delete cascade. And let's take a look at what that looks like. I have gone through on the order details, and I have on my foreign key on the order details copy, order copy. I created copies of the order table and the order details table. And if I look at this, if we get into our insert and update, notice that it has the delete rule of cascade. So essentially we usually refer to that as a delete cascade. And what that means is if I delete something in the parent table, it's going to go ahead and cascade the delete down to the child table and remove all rows that are in that child table. So that's something that you would have to have a specific use case to use, that you don't mind wiping out all the children and you're just going to wipe out the parent and you don't need to keep the data. In a lot of cases, you need to keep the data in sync, and you don't want to remove the parent and the children. You don't want to remove the parent, and you're going to put in that no action, which is the default again. We could always set this to the set null, and this would be where we would go ahead and if we delete the parent, then we're going to set the field, whatever its value currently is, to be null. So we're going to remove essentially that relationship between the parent and the child item at that point. So that's another option. So how does this look from the standpoint of our insert and update? So if I close this and I go back to my SQL window, wherever it's at, and I look at my orders copy table. So I have a select asterisk from dbo.orders copy. When I execute this, if I select something from this, maybe I have something with a value of 10251 for my order ID. And I also have a dbo.order details copy. When I copied it, I didn't put that space in the table name. That's usually a really bad practice to put embedded spaces in table names. So if I look at this one, this is going to be from my DBO order details copy, and I want to look where my order ID is equal to the 10251. And if I execute that, we can see that we have 3 lines here. If I go ahead and specify the delete from the dbo.orders copy, we've already seen that it has a cascade rule on the order details copy table where my order ID is equal to the 10251. Then if I go ahead and execute this, it's going to show that there's only one row affected. If I look at my table, I should see that I do not have my 10251. If I look at my details copy, I have nothing being returned. So when it removed the record on the orders copy, then it cascaded that delete action down to the children and removed any of the rows that were associated to that parent order ID. So that's kind of something to understand the relationship when you have foreign keys and what the net effect is going to be on your deletes. Let's go ahead and let's get into Azure Data Studio. We want to take a look at where we can see that relationship for our constraints. If we get into, let's go into Northwinds here. I go into my Northwinds and get into my tables. Then if I go to my order details copy and get into the design, if I go to my foreign key, it's a little bit easier to see. I have my orders copy here. It's going to show me what the relationship is over here. So it makes it a little easier to see what that relationship is. I can also see what it looks like down in the script section where it says on delete cascade. Design on my employees table. Into the foreign keys. I can see that it's showing no action here. Now if I go over to Oracle, I can go ahead and if I just click on something, notice that I have the ability to see my constraints here. Give it a second to load. And it would show me any primary key or foreign key constraints. If we went to the departments instead, we can see that we have a foreign key constraint. It's showing us the no action for that delete rule, so we can see it here. And one thing I did want to show is in Oracle, if I wanted to delete something from a table and I want to delete everything from the table and I have no foreign key constraints that I know of, like in this messages table, we kind of saw that there were no foreign key associations there. Instead of doing a delete from messages to remove all the messages, which is perfectly acceptable. And remember, I have this set to not auto commit. If I execute this, it's going to remove the 4 rows. I can go ahead and roll this back. The easier and faster way to do this is to do a truncate table. And this is messages. From a performance standpoint, this is just a little bit faster to remove all the rows from the table. So that's another option in Oracle. Doesn't work in SQL Server. It is specific to Oracle that you can truncate that table, which just basically removes all the rows. If you have large tables, the truncate is much faster than the delete. So just something to keep in mind. And the next video, we're going to go and look at the merge statement.